class is about to begin. I'm just so much going on with exams and everything, and I'm a fellow researcher as well. I gotta keep up my own research, so I'm always busy, as a professor should be. So, today's class, I believe, we're going to be learning about Scatterbug, and of course its evolutions as well. Let's look at Scatterbug right here. He is known as the Scattered Pokemon, and we will get to that, why it gets that name in a minute. But I think first let's look at its general biology. So, as you can probably guess, Scatterbug is a bug-type Pokemon, and as you can see, it's a larva Pokemon with a relatively large head, and it has 3 white hairs coming out of the top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 heads coming out of the top. It has this white sort of fluff, sort of ruff, kind of like a scarf around his neck. It also has very small legs and a pointy tooth, pointy tooth that it uses to eat. It uses this tooth to eat a variety of plants, including poisonous leaves and also roots. It then uses these poisonous leaves that it ingests and turns them into a powder that it scatters all over its body. And this is where Scatterbug gets its name from, the Scattered Dust Pokemon, because it scatters dust or powder all over its body. Now, why does it do this? Is it for fun? Is it as a decoration? No, well, it could also be decoration, I guess, but it's mainly self-defense. This powder causes paralysis upon contact, and it's used to defend itself, mainly against bird-type Pokemon, but any other threat is also fine. It uses this powder also to regulate its own body temperature, so it can adapt to a lot of climates really quickly. Now, Scatterbugs only learn naturally. They only learn 6 moves. Let's go through them really quickly, okay? Those moves are Tackle, String Shot, Stun, Spore, Bug Bite, Poison Powder, and Rage Powder. So pretty generic, like sort of low level bug type moves and a bunch of powder moves, which makes sense because everything about him is a lot of things about him have to do with powder. However, it can also learn Struggle Bug, Pounce, and Bug Bite by a TM, which maybe doesn't help it very much in a battle, but Scatterbug is not the Pokemon that's going to be battling, being a larva Pokemon. So, because it is a larva Pokemon, it does not take very long for it to evolve into its first evolution. Okay? Before we proceed into its first evolution, is there any questions about Scatterbug? Yeah, what's up? Yes, exactly, absolutely, nailed it. Anything else? Yes, its powder is essential. Yes, we will get into that in a minute. Don't worry. Oh yes, Scatterbug is definitely one of my favorite Pokemon. I don't know what it is about him. That's why I own one. Because he's so sweet and easy to take care of. If you don't take into consideration the poisonous powder and, don't want to get paralyzed. Luckily, he's very sweet and he doesn't let me get paralyzed. Okay, let's move on to the evolution, okay? The evolution is called Spewpa. I'll put it over here. Spewpa is a cocoon-like Pokemon. It is the cocoon stage of the evolution. A lot of bug types, as you can probably already imagine, as you probably already know, have a larva stage, a cocoon stage, and then usually a butterfly sort of stage, but it can be something else as well. Now, Spewpa, it is a Pokemon covered in a sharp and white fur, and it kind of hides itself in this sharp white fur. And it will use the poisonous powder that it has to fend off predators, which tend to be, as I mentioned earlier, flying type Pokemon. Spewpa, being a larva Pokemon, learns a variety of defensive moves to help it to defend itself, such as Harden, Protect, Iron Defense, all these classic sort of defense increasing moves that larva Pokemon tend to have. Cocoon Pokemon tend to have. Again, since it's a bug cocoon Pokemon, it also doesn't take very long for it to evolve again into its final evolution. And now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting and a little bit potentially stressful, because it evolves into Vivillon. I'll put a photo of Vivillon right here. So, the first thing, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that Vivillon's Pokedex number is 666. I just thought it'd be a fun fact to share. Vivillon, as you can imagine, against the flying type butterfly Pokemon, sort of makes sense that it now can fly against a flying type. So it's now a bug and flying type Pokemon. And most importantly, and this is where it either is really cool for you or really stressful for you, or both. I personally really like it. But it's the fact that Vivillon has 20 different forms. Yes, 20 different forms. Don't worry, the only difference really between these forms is visual, and it has to do specifically with the color of its wings. I think Vivillon is a really interesting Pokemon because it is one of the only Pokemon that kind of that has different color variations to it once it evolves. Yes, so and I say 20, and this is 20 at least, because some scientists and other bug specialists are constantly researching this Pokemon, and who knows what else they might find. They might find a new form in the future. We found a bunch of forms that were, we found specifically one form recently that is only in the Paldea region. Very interesting. We'll get to that once we look at all the forms, so don't worry about that. And also, if you study bug Pokemon in the future, or if you want to pick a path that kind of focuses more into studying bugs or Pokemon with a bunch of forms, you'll get to that, so don't worry about it. So, any quick questions before we go into Vivillon? Yes, 20 forms, yes. Yes, I think Vivillon, I think it's really interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. And you don't have to learn all the forms. There won't be like a test on like, oh, this blue form, what is it called? I don't think you'll have to get that in any test. And if you do get that, the examiner is evil. Unless specifically, of course, you're focusing on studying bug-type Pokemon. So, any more questions? Oh yes, so my finger. You won't believe it. Basically, a previous student brought me their Shelter. And I don't know what happened. Shelter, I think he must have mistook my finger for a Slowpoke's tail, because it leaped right off my student's hands into my finger, biting it. Don't know what happened. It's just what Shelters do. Thankfully nothing happened. Both the Shelter and I were fine. Unfortunately, no Slowpokes. So, no more questions. Okay, very good. Now, I say with Vivillon, we look at its general biology first and go from there. Kind of warm you up to it, you know. Now, Vivillon is no longer the Scattered Dust Pokemon, it is now the Scale Pokemon. It is a butterfly-like Pokemon with large wings, which, as I said, and as you'll see, can have a variety of different patterns. Its body remains quite similar to its previous evolutions, still having a pretty large head, which now has 2 antennae instead of the 3 hairs that it had earlier. It maintains its very small legs and now has also 2 very small arms. You could say that its front legs kind of develop into arms. Now, differently to Scatterbug and Spewpa, Vivillon actually learns a variety of new moves, such as, for example, it learns Gust on evolution, and it can eventually learn a good variety of both flying and bug type moves, such as Bug Buzz, Bowl and Puff, or Air Cutter. And of course, its most iconic move has to be its signature move, Powder. Yes, you heard it right. The name is just Powder. We already had Poison Powder, Sleep Powder, all these powder moves, but this one is just Powder. So, what does Powder do? Vivillon covers the enemy or whatever it's targeting in powder, and if the target tries to use a fire type move, they will take damage instead of being able to fire that move. So I kind of cover you in the powder, and if you try to use a fire type move, the powder kind of will ignite around you and you'll get hit by the fire, and your fire type move will not come out, essentially. As you can probably guess, this is a very niche move if you're fighting anything that does not use a fire type move. The move does nothing. But it's a good way for Vivillon to learn to deal with some of its natural fire type predators. Obviously, bugs, really weak to fire. So it kind of is a good countermeasure in that sense to that one specific niche that kind of is strong against them. Now, let's go on to the colors and patterns. As I mentioned, there are 20 of them that have been discovered. So we're going to go through all of them relatively quickly, because again, they're not going to be tested on it, but I think it's cool that you know. So let's get ready, okay? Now generally, Vivillons, and this is really cool, they get their pattern based on when they were born. So their pattern is already predetermined since they were a scatterbug. So no matter what happens to this scatterbug, its pattern that it will get when it evolves has already been determined. It doesn't matter what happens to it, it doesn't matter where it goes, it doesn't matter, nothing matters. He already has a pattern that will happen when he is born, that when he evolves. So, I'm going to need you to look at the patterns with me, okay? As a quick mention, it gets them from the conditions where they were born, right? For example, weather, temperature, location. These conditions, for a lot of them, for a bunch of them, they might seem similar. Like you might be like, okay, well, this condition was just ice, and this other condition is just ice. But we found out that it's slightly different. Scientists know about this. Again, if you move into studying bug-type Pokemon in the future, or if you learn Pokemon with different forms, I'm sure you'll get a class that can teach you this in more detail. So as I said, there's very small differences that affect a pattern and their location of origin. Now, these small differences, though, have a massive impact of how Vivillon's pattern will be. Okay, so, are you ready for the patterns? I was going to sort them alphabetically at first, but I thought it would try to make more sense to sort them in a way so that the similar conditions for patterns, like all the ice patterns, are together, you know? So you kind of get an idea of what I mean. So, and we'll also take a short break halfway through to gather all of our thoughts, okay? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Starting us off is the archipelago pattern, which gets its name because it is found in Vivillons born in a land with many islands, which is called an archipelago. Secondly, we have the garden pattern, which, as I'm sure you can guess, is from an area that has a lot of green and a lot of grass. Garden, like a garden, yeah, exactly. So, now we have the meadow pattern, and this pattern appears in areas that have lots of blooming flowers. So you see what I mean? It's kind of similar to the garden pattern, but this one requires flowers. Now we're going to go onto the ocean / water / beach patterns. Let's go. The marine pattern occurs near the beach in an area, and it has to, researchers have named the area with an area that has to have nice ocean breezes. I don't know about you, sounds like a perfect location to live. The ocean pattern happens in your classic beachy areas, and also areas where summer is quite prevalent. See how it sounds similar? But yeah, researchers have done all the research, and if you move into a bug researching future, I'm sure you'll learn the specifics and why. Oh, it's near the beach, but is it going to be marine pattern or is it going to be ocean pattern? Is the ocean breeze good enough to be a marine pattern, or is it very summery, so it's going to be the ocean pattern? Next up is the modern pattern. This one is found, believe it or not, in an area with a lot of sun. So your warm and sunny regions, kind of for this one, not necessarily beach. But yeah, as you can see, the conditions are similar. And it'll be even more similar for the next one, which is the sun pattern, which is just areas that are constantly bathed in the sun. Bathed in the sun. Bathed in the sun. So again, pretty similar sort of requirements, but there's differences. The small differences can make a massive difference, which I think is really interesting how such a small like condition change at a place where a scatterbug was born can have such a massive impact on its pattern. Let's move on to the last of the hot and sort of sunny patterns, which is the sandstorm pattern, which comes from desert areas. Now you can tell the difference there. Very dry, very hot, like a desert. Next up we have the continental pattern, and this pattern occurs when Vivillon is born in a land with a very large and vast space. Pretty simple. The high plains pattern, which is an area with high plains, as the name indicates, but it also has to be an area that doesn't have too much rain. So, that's 10. That's halfway through. How are you feeling? Let's take a small break to the last 10, okay? Let's breathe a bit. Breathe in and breathe out. And let's do one more. Breathe in and out. You feeling good? Ready to go again? Perfect. So, let's go with the last 10. So, this is the river pattern, which is found near lands, as you can probably guess, with a lot of rivers. Very good. The savanna pattern, found in tropical climate biomes. The jungle pattern, you guessed it, in a jungle. So, kind of tropical rainforests, areas sort of like that. And the monsoon pattern. This one is with areas with intense rainfall and lots and lots and lots of rain. Lots of rain. Now we move on to the three sort of snowy patterns that you can have. First we have the icy snow pattern, which is from a cold land, so your general icy biome is going to have this. And the polar pattern, which as you can guess also comes from snowy lands. And lastly, the tundra pattern, which is found in areas where the weather is severely cold. This one needs to be severely cold, not necessarily wintry, but if it's really cold, usually it's going to be wintry, right? Otherwise it might fit one of the other patterns instead. We have 3 more to go, which are the elegant pattern, which is found from scatterbugs, which evolved into Vivillons, which were born in a land with distinct seasons. So a bunch of climate changes, not necessarily rough climate changes, but just a lot of climate changes in general. And here comes the one from Paldea, which is the fancy pattern. It's found mainly in Paldea, but it's also been found to appear in other regions, which have a similar topography to Paldea's, a similar kind of climate, weather, vibe to Paldea. You might also find the fancy pattern. And lastly, this is the iconic Pokeball pattern. Now this one's really interesting because it's not really known what the conditions are for this one to appear. And again, if you focus more on studying bug types in the future, you might encounter a class that will allow you to learn more about this pattern. I think it's a really interesting pattern. It looks like a Pokeball right here. I think it's really cool. Anyways, so that was 20. How do you feel? Do you have a favorite? For me, it's really hard to pick one. I think I will love whichever one Scatterbug evolves into. I don't even know it, to be honest, because the conditions are so different. I have an idea based on where I got him from, but we never know. I think my biggest takeaway is that it's so fascinating that scatterbugs can live and thrive in so many conditions. And when they evolve, they'll always carry a part of their origins with them, no matter what. Because, as I mentioned, their pattern is predetermined at birth. So you can take a scatterbug from an icy region to a hot or deserted one. And once it becomes a Vivillon, it will still have the pattern from the icy region. And I think that's beautiful. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Scatterbug and Vivillon? Yes, I think he's great. Look at him. And he's so beautiful when he evolves. Let me know what your favorite pattern is, okay? And I think that's all the time we have for today. So, thank you very much for coming. Don't forget to let me know about your favorite pattern. And also, if there's any Pokemon that you'd like to learn about next. Thank you very much for coming, and see you next class. Bye bye. Say goodbye, Scatterbug. Bye bye bye.